Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to do something I very rarely do and do a spotlight today. This bloom has just opened. This is Coelogyne speciosa and it's the variety Burnham. It came from Burnham's, it's one of their own, so a named variety of the species. Now this comes from Sumatra, Papua New Guinea, areas like that, and it's classed as warmth tolerant. Now most Coelogynes are cooler growers, quite a few coming from sort of inland China and as you sort of head north, but this one is warmth tolerant, so it can stand a bit of heat. So it's one that's less likely to completely stop growing in the warmth of summer, which is good. It means it can keep going, whereas others will just stop in the summer and then restart again in the autumn. Now it varies in colour. The petals and sepals, if you have a look, it has a very unusual form. It's got 3 sepals as normal. I'll try not to touch it or it'll go out of focus. But then instead of proper petals, it's got these 2 very narrow petals. And obviously the 3rd petal is the adapted petal, which is the lip. And the colour of the sepals and petals can vary from almost white through to pink tinges, green tinges, and like this one, the peachy tinges. But they tend to be pale and they're not, you can almost see through them. They're very, very, very thin. Up against the light, they are almost see-through. Now, the downside of this plant is because it comes from tropical areas, monsoon areas, and can flower in the rainy season, the flowers point downwards. Now that's an adaptation to stop the water getting directly inside the flower, washing all the pollen away, which doesn't help its survival. So they hang downwards. So these work well in a hanging basket or something like that where you can get underneath them. Now mine's on the highest shelf in the grow room, literally, but unfortunately I'd have to put it on another pot to be able to get it in its ideal viewing position, i.e. looking at it from underneath. Now it's a sequential bloomer, so you can already see the bud here. This will be the bud that follows on when this one fades. I do have another flower spike coming around the back of the plant. I also have what I'm hoping is a new growth, but it could be yet a 3rd flower spike. These are quite floriferous, and that's a big word without coffee. I have got a coffee in my hand, but I'd have to stop talking to drink it, which I'll do now and again. You'll all think you've gone deaf. Anyway, so that's the flowers. The colour of the lip, the edges of the lip, the frilly bits, tend to be heading towards white, but the actual centre of the lip can vary from a deep chocolate brown right through to these pale peachy colours like this one. I mean, I can understand why Burnham's named this as a variety, literally because the centre of the lip matches the petals and sepals, which is a little unusual. Normally the lip has a deeper coloration on it, so they've obviously named this variety. Now this is not a giant Coelogyne. The leaves are, I suppose, 9 inches in old money from the start of the leaf to the tip of the leaf. If you add in the stem of the leaf and the bulb, then you're probably looking at 15 inches, possibly even heading up towards 20 on a more mature plant. But it's not a giant, so it's quite accommodating. Now the problem with this one is, I say it's a problem, it depends on your viewpoint. It's common as muck. Anybody who's got a few Coelogynes is probably going to have one of these. And in addition to that, because of that, it's readily available. You can get hold of a speciosa quite easily in places that have got coelogynes for sale. They're liable to have one of these. That doesn't make it not nice to have. Now apparently this can grow into a specimen plant relatively quickly. Well, mine's a young plant, it's a young division. It's only got a few bulbs, and the latest bulb is probably the first one to reach the full size that the bulbs can get to. So it's got some work to do. But nonetheless, it's a healthy plant, it's got a good root system, and as I said, it does have a second flower spike pushing on. The flower spikes at first look like a growth, and then they switch round. Now let me put my coffee down a minute. I'll just zoom out away from the specific. Just move the camera a little bit so that we can see the other parts of the plant. That's what I'm getting at. So round here is the other flower spike. Now if I turn the pot slightly so that you can see it better, you can see it looks like a new growth, and then it will open like this one has. In fact, I'm going to take the camera off because I need to move it. So a bit of seasick while I get this on my hand, but not too bad. And then if I get the tripod out of the way, I won't break my neck on the legs. Right, now, so this is a flower spike that's opened, and you can see inside the sheaths is a normal looking flower spike with a bud that opens relatively quickly. And the secondary bud will sit there like that until this one fades, then it will open. Now, I've only ever seen two on a flower spike, and I can't find any written information in the scrolls and runes that says what the maximum might be. But I would suggest probably three. The words, the words in the ancient scrolls basically say few flowers. What's few? If you're looking at some that normally have 30 blooms and it's only got 20 or only 15, that might be classed as a few. But anyway, that's what the flower spike looks like before it opens, and I'm hoping that this is a new growth which looks almost identical at first, but it could still be yet another flower spike. Now these look good as a specimen plant, and when you get up to a good sized plant you can have flowers on them virtually throughout the year. Now that's a bit special. A lot of coelogynes have a specific flowering season, and that's your lot. You've then got green for the rest of the year. But these can be flowering on and off throughout the year. They may have a peak flowering season depending on how the growths mature on your plant. But I plan to grow this on to the largest plant I can actually get, because I really like these blooms. So yeah, it's I grow all my coelogynes in bark. They seem to do okay. They don't like to be totally dry for any length of time. If you think, if it comes from a monsoon area, then it spends a fair amount of the year being absolutely soaking wet. Yeah? But it also spends part of the year without those monsoon rains. That would probably be classed as a semi-rest, I would say, but it's still not totally dry. So they like to be moist, they like good humidity. Again, monsoon areas, pretty high humidity and all that sort of stuff. And they can tolerate a fair bit of heat. That doesn't mean to say they won't grow as a cool grower amongst your other cool growing coelogynes, like this one is for me. It's got a good set of leaves on it. Nice big fat leaves on this one, not long skinny ones. There's quite a few leaves on it. In fact, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 leaves on here, and at the moment there's only one leafless bulb. All the other bulbs have leaves on them, and my bulbs have only got a single leaf. I'm not sure that that's the maximum. And my main reason is this. What's this? That's not where they flower from. They flower from the base of the bulb. So what was that then? Was that a failed leaf on this particular? This is the latest growth, the latest bulb that I've grown basically. So yeah, I would say a rewarding coelogyne because the blooms are large. I can't detect any fragrance, I must admit. And I would say if I ever see one of these with the deep chocolate brown centre to the lip, I will get it. Because it'll be the same plant, same growing, everything the same apart from the colour of the bloom. And to me that would be different enough to warrant having a second version. So I will keep my eye out. In fact, next time I go to Burnham's I will specifically ask to see if they've actually got them. Because obviously they've particularly, if you grow from seed, the results will be variable. And Burnham's picked on this one and decided it was good enough to give it a registered name. So, but yeah, as you can see, if I get down here, this is the view you need. Now I'm crouched down now to the point that my knees are going to pop, so I'm not staying here long, and my back's bent, which I don't like. But if I got one of my larger black pots out and sat this pot on top of it, I could raise the bloom up to here, at which point I would be sort of looking up at it. So I might just do that in a minute. It might make it a little bit unsafe, but I don't think so. So there you go, an unusual thing for me to do a spotlight, but I often used to do them on the end of the Sunday chat. I've done this today because apparently it's going to be a wet day. We've got some heavy rain coming in towards lunchtime. I wanted to get this filming done obviously before the rain starts because of the noise level, and I want to get the hot box on because if it's raining Mojo can't go out anyway, and I don't like working out here when it's chucking it down with rain because the noise level is quite uncomfortable. So I'm going to get the hot box on as soon as I've got this out of the way. In fact, what is the time now? 11:15. So if I get the hot box on for 11 o'clock, give it 4 or 5 hours, then I've got plenty of time to air the place out, and then Mojo can come and go after that as he pleases. So there we go, that's my plant, a young division. If you have a look round here you can see the growth pattern. You've got the oldest bulb, couple of bulbs here down in the pot, sort of semi-buried. And then this would have been the next progression. It's me calling it a division, it's actually a seedling. I'm just man speak with forked tongue. It's a seedling. So you've got the tiniest bulbs gradually getting bigger, up to here, up to here, up to here, and then the latest one. That's a good way of telling a seedling, providing when it was potted up they left the oldest pseudo bulbs on, which would be the tiny ones, yeah, the first ones that the plant produced in effect. So there we go then. That is Coelogyne speciosa variety Burnham, and I've only ever seen it written without the S on the end because you normally refer to Burnhams as Burnhams with an S but it's just called Burnham. So there we go. See you next time. Thanks for stopping by.